Are you familiar with the IRS's First Time Abatement program and how it can save you money on tax penalties? I'm Andrew Bosserman, tax attorney and founder of Boss Tax Law, and in this video I'm going to quickly describe the IRS's First Time Abatement program and how you can use it to abate tax penalties you may have incurred. So, first of all, First time abatement is a program that the IRS will abate or waive any tax penalties you incurred. Essentially, if it is your quote unquote first time, getting this kind of penalty. It's not necessarily first time, which I'll explain, but essentially, if you haven't incurred this kind of penalty before in recent years, or it's more of an isolated incident, that's what this program is intended to remedy. It's kind of like a get out of jail free card, or hey, now you know the law, we'll waive the penalty this first time, but going forward, you're going to have to pay any future penalties. So, what types of penalties does this cover? It covers three main types: the failure to file, the failure to pay, and the failure to deposit penalties. The failure to file penalty has to do with when you file a tax return late. So I have another video on this topic that I'll link to, but essentially the IRS assesses a penalty if you file a tax return late. The failure to pay penalty is similar, except it's assessed when you don't pay your taxes on time to the IRS. And then the failure to deposit penalty, that is similar to the failure to pay penalty, but it's for employers who don't pay their employees' payroll taxes over to the IRS on time. So those are the three types of penalties that are abatable under the First Time Abatement program. So first, you need to make sure that it's one of those penalties that qualifies. Second, in order to qualify for First Time Abatement, you must make sure you have a quote unquote clean compliance history. So what does this mean with the IRS? It means that, first of all, you must have not had any unreversed penalties in the past 3 years with the IRS. And unreversed means they haven't been waived for some other reason. Rather, the most common other reason is reasonable cause, which I'll discuss in another video. But essentially, if you incurred and paid a penalty in the past 3 years, you're likely not going to qualify for first time abatement. Also, you must have filed all required tax returns. The IRS isn't going to grant first time abatement if you missed the due date and haven't yet filed a tax return for either individual or business. It depends on if you're an individual or a business trying to get first time abatement. And finally, all your taxes must be paid, or you must have agreed to pay them. So that means you can't have any unpaid taxes, but if you have, say, unpaid taxes, you must be under some sort of agreement to pay. So it's okay to have unpaid taxes so long as you're under an active installment agreement and working on making payments. So then if you've met those qualifications, then you're generally going to qualify for first time abatement. So how do you take advantage of this first time abatement? The easiest way is to simply call the IRS. When you get a penalty, you should receive a notice in the mail from the IRS. Normally you just have to call the phone number on that notice and talk to the agent and say, I received this penalty. I believe I'm eligible for first time abatement. And the agent will look into your situation and they will grant first time abatement and wipe away the penalty if it applies. In some instances, you may have to write a letter or fill out a Form 843 to request penalty abatement. Or if you just don't want to call the IRS, you can also request first time abatement through the mail. So you can either do it by writing a letter in response to the notice, or in some instances, it's called Form 843. It's a form that's used for abatement or refund of taxes. So generally, I try to call first because it's generally quicker than sending a letter in the mail, but in some instances, you can't, or you may prefer to send a letter in the mail. So that is a quick overview of first time abatement. It's definitely extremely important to keep in mind if you're ever assess the tax penalty because it's often the easiest and quickest way to get a penalty abated. But if not, if you don't qualify for first time abatement, there may be other options such as reasonable cause. And in future videos and articles, I'm going to discuss how you qualify for reasonable cause penalty abatement. But in the meantime, feel free to reach out if you have any questions about first time abatement or any other issues with tax penalties.